All right, it looks like we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all are doing well this morning. Welcome to our next live broadcast. This is the ninth live broadcast of this semester. I hope you all can hear me just fine. We're going to get started here in just another couple of moments. Of course, it takes the Hangout application or the Notebowl application just a little while to populate all 700 and something of the students' emails to send the link so that folks will be able to get logged in here, but I assume people will start getting logged in here in just another couple of moments. And of course, we'll get going here as soon as that happens. But when we do get going, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you all can hear and see me okay. Good morning, Quinzao Pan. I hope you're all doing well. And please let me know, Quinzao, you're the first one here. Let me know if you can hear and see me okay. And if you can, I greatly appreciate it if you can give me just the thumbs up or the thumbs down, sort of letting me know if that audio and video are working well for you. Looks like we have Sharia and Caroline and Yin Wang. Shelly and Katie and Jordan, hi to all of you. Thank you once again for being here. Connor and Priscilla, thank you all for being here. Good morning, good morning. And Megan, how are you this morning? I hope you all are doing well. Thank you once again, always for being here. You all are the faithful few, I guess, if you want to call 100 students a few, but it is a few if you think about the fact that we got 780 in the class and about 150 of you show up for the regularly, which I certainly appreciate. And I hope you all are getting something out of these morning sessions as well. Good morning, Garrett and Casey and Sarah and Betsy and Thailand and Carson. I hope you all are once again doing well. We're waiting for our live presenters to get here. I see that about 19 of you are here. So thank you once again. Remember, I'm going to click on over to in fact, let me take a picture of this because the developers did want me to take a picture of what I saw whenever I was in the Hangout sessions. And then that way I'll be able to send them a screenshot versus the Hangout window here. Let me take another picture of that. Sorry about the delay, folks, but I just got to make sure that they fix this thing because I want this to be right at some point, and then that way we'll be able to go ahead and get going here. Okay, so once again, if you have any questions whatsoever, please go ahead and post them there in the Hangout chat area, and I'll be able to read those. I'll click on over to the live session window when I start hearing the presenters arriving. I don't hear any of them yet. Let's see if they're there. Nope, not yet. So hopefully they'll be here in just a few moments. I sent them all the email, and it may take them just a moment to get logged in. Otherwise, for the rest of you, if you do have any questions, anything you want further clarified, I'd greatly appreciate it if you can go ahead and ask there. I've got some announcements for you as usual, and some things that I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about. Some things I want you to move to the forefront of your minds, and just to make sure that we're all good with regards to where we are in the semester and hopefully where we're going to be going with the next era that we're going to be entering. Remember, we've gone through some two major eras so far, and we'll get into those eras as we merge or segue into our discussion of James Weldon Johnson leading up to World War One, out of World War One, and then into the Harlem Renaissance. So it's going to be a very exciting period. It's one of my favorites. It's what I specialized in during my PhD program, but also one that has some world or global sort of connections when you think about something like the Harlem Renaissance. Think about what you learned about the Harlem Renaissance in high school, and we'll get in, or maybe even in some of your other college classes. But we'll get into all of that sort of intro kind of discussion here and connections here in just a few moments. I guess you all are wondering where my coffee is, right? I got it right here. I can't go too long without at least taking a sip, right? So excuse me for just a moment. Mm-mm-mm. I just got to sit back and savor that because it's extra good this morning. Do I say that every morning that my coffee is extra good? I probably do, but it is extra good every morning. You guys just don't know, right? And I certainly appreciate your patience with me drinking my coffee. All right, Jordan Hill says, or is asking on the calendar, it says that the AV mix and reflective writing exercise I do are due on March 4th, but on the syllabus it says due April. Which date is correct? Well, Jordan, if you look at the syllabus, you'll see those are the early submission dates for extra credit. And so if you do submit by those earlier dates, you will receive a little extra credit. However, the final submission date is it should be May 4th, but let's go ahead and check that. And if I did make a mistake, then I do apologize for that. So let's go ahead and look at what's going on March 4th. Okay. So let's see if I made that mistake. Let's see. March. I don't see a March 4th in the syllabus here, in the schedule here. I'm still looking. Uh, Okay, so according to the schedule here, it says if you and I'm looking on April 3rd, if you submit your reflective writing exercise before April 8th, you'll have the opportunity to receive feedback and, if necessary, rewrite it by the early submission of April 15th or the regular submission date of April 22nd. So that's the reflective writing exercise. Let's see, here it is, under April 10th, it says, Intellectual AV Mix Project Extra Credit Early Submission Deadline is April 13th. Regular submission is April 27th, and then I have a URL that you submit your thing to. So go by what's in the schedule, please, Jordan. And if I made a mistake in the actual description of that particular assignment, which I may have, I do apologize for that. I'll have to make sure I update that. But please go by what's in the schedule, and you'll be good to go with regards to making sure that you submit those by the correct early submission and regular submission deadlines. I hope that answers your question and clears up any confusion. I do apologize if I made that mistake. Okay. All right. So good morning to the rest of you. Once again, I'm still waiting for our live presenters to arrive. I don't see them yet, so hopefully they'll be here in just a few moments. I asked them to log in just a little bit early so we can get their audio and video set up. But hey, sometimes life happens, right? So maybe they'll be here in just a moment and we'll get going with that. Mm-mm-mm. Oh my goodness. This makes everything all better though. I don't care if they're late. No, I do care. But my gosh, coffee sure does smooth things out a little bit. You all just don't know. You just don't know. I know you don't understand. Mm. But thank you for your patience with my with my coffee addiction. Okay, so let's see if anyone has any other clarification questions or anything like that. I don't see any so far, so I'll just go ahead and keep checking the chat area. Once again, thank you all for being here this morning. We're going to get started in hopefully about another 5 minutes or so. It might take us a few moments to get the live presenters all set up. Live presenters, if you happen to be in that chat area, please check your email and click on the link that I've sent you so that you'll be able to then access the control room where you're going to be doing your live presentation. Okay, if you are not there, presenters, oh well, maybe they've changed their mind and decided to do it as a recording. In which case, of course, that's due by 11:59 p.m. on the date under the author's name. I think I repeat that over and over again, but I just want to make sure people get it because, on the calendar, it says something different. And that's one of the only cases, unless, of course, I made the mistake on the intellectual AV mix. That's the only case that you'll want to make sure that you follow what is on the instruction sheet as opposed to what's on the notebowl calendar. Remember, I explained that the only reason why that date is extended out for the author discussion is so that the graders will have an opportunity to add your grade shortly after you've done your presentation, whether it's recorded or live. I did see a question on the notebowl bulletin. Someone was asking, or someone said that they did not understand what I meant by making sure that you had audio and video in your author discussion. Now, what I meant by that was please make sure that you use one of the applications that are listed on the instruction page. In doing so, you'll be prompted to enable your webcam on your computer and your microphone, as well as either screencast or upload a PowerPoint presentation. Once you've done that, you hit the record button, and then it will record your video, it will record your audio, and you'll be able to to take us through your slides while you're talking about your slides. So basically you're recording a presentation, audio and video. Okay, and in doing so you then follow the mandates of this particular assignment. By only doing an audio recording, you do miss out on some points, and you will have points deducted for that. So please follow those directions. If you don't understand those, if you open one of those applications, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, if you need further clarification, please contact either me or one of the graders. Also, folks, please keep in mind that I would really rather have you talk about personal grading issues either by emailing me or emailing your grader and copying me on the correspondence. There's no need to post that on the public bulletin, because remember, that goes to everybody's email, and you don't want necessarily a personal email about your grade going to everybody's email, because then folks start to ignore emails from the note bowl system, and there might be something important posted there, and then of course then folks miss it because it's like, the boy who cried wolf. Oh, I'm getting 1,000 emails. I'm not going to pay attention to these dozen that I got today. And inside one of those dozen emails is a very important message from me or one of the graders. So please keep that in mind with regards to how to communicate with us. And please make sure that if you do have a question about your grade, that you email your grader and copy me on the correspondence. That way I'm aware of what's going on, and then the graders will typically handle any questions that you might have, and they do a really great job. Please also remember that the graders will be posting on the bulletin when they have grades posted, or when they have uploaded any of the grades for various assignments. So don't worry about, or don't email or post on the bulletin, "Are grades posted yet?" or "I don't see my grade posted," or something like that. Because if your grader hasn't posted that he or she has posted those grades, then of course you're not going to see your grades posted. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Mm-mm-mm. Oh my gosh, that is so good. It makes the fact that the presenters are not here yet, it makes it all better, right? So I'll probably end up doing some information on James Weldon Johnson. I don't mind doing that, and then we'll move on into the next topic, or the next era that we're going to be discussing. I don't see any questions in the chat area this morning, and that's no problem. But remember, please, if you do have any questions or any clarifications, or anything that you just want a bit more information on, please go ahead and post them there. I'll keep checking this chat area, and then you'll be able to make sure that I'll be able to make sure that I answer any of those questions that you might have. Okay. All right. Great. Okay. So it looks like about 90 of you are here, and it is 7 a.m. So in order to not keep you any longer than we need to, I'm going to just assume that something has gone wrong with our presenters, and they are not going to be doing their live presentation. And I'll go ahead and talk about James Weldon Johnson, as well as segue us into our next era here myself. Okay. So thank you once again for being here. I really once again appreciate all of your presence. As I mentioned earlier, those who are the faithful few, you're amazing. And it makes doing these live sessions just so much more interesting when I read your questions, and when you do your live presentations. It's always so much more fun. Okay, so I posted some deadline dates on the syllabus, and I do want to just reiterate those as usual. Please make sure that you post your voice thread number 6 by 11:59 p.m. on the 16th, and then of course your upcoming readings are on the Introduction to the Harlem Renaissance, the next era that we're going to be entering, as well as your readings on Langston Hughes. Those readings are in the syllabus. Now, I do understand that there was a 2 hour outage of Note Bowl on Sunday, when maybe some people were waiting until the very last minute. No, I'm just kidding. We're waiting to take the quiz on Sunday. And so, unfortunately, some of you logged in during that 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Hour, and got an error message. What I've done in light of that is I've reopened the quiz until 11:59 p.m. tonight. And just a word of caution suggestion for some of you that were having some issues with either Notebowl or the voice thread. Please, folks, there are 800 people in the class, and there are probably a thousand others that are using voice thread as well. What I would suggest doing is probably to lower your frustration rate. Is to probably not wait until 10 or 11 p.m. on Sunday evening or the night of a voice thread post to post those voice threads. Sometimes waiting until that final moment can put a strain on the server that's of no one's fault. But basically, it just happens that a whole bunch of people were waiting until the last possible moment, or because they were busy to post a voice thread. And because of those frustrations, or because of that load that was placed on the server, caused maybe VoiceThread to continue to buffer and not load. I did learn from a few of you that when you just waited, and sometimes it took a moment, that eventually VoiceThread would load. And because I heard that, it suggested to me that, yeah, this was probably the case, that there was just too much load on the server. And as people posted their responses, then space opened up. And as space opened up, then the buffering ceased for some of you. So please keep in mind that. And in the interim, some of you got frustrated, right? And some of you were like emailing me at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Dr. C, my voice thread won't load. I don't know what to do. Okay, so I'll get off that soapbox. But what you can also consider doing is that, remember, with VoiceThread, you're not just limited to posting a voice or a video response. I prefer that. But keep in mind that you can, in an emergency like this, you can call in a response. And if you look on the VoiceThread interface, you'll see where there is a telephone icon. Click on that icon and you'll see what happens. Unfortunately, you only get about 6 minutes. So what I would do is use that option as a last resort. And because once that 6 minutes is up, you don't get any more time. And I'm not sure why they do it that way, but that might be something to consider. The other thing to consider, and one of your classmates told me about this, I knew that there was a VoiceThread application for iOS and Android devices. And so what you may consider doing is downloading that application for your mobile device. And if you can't post from your computer, try it on the mobile device. And then finally, please keep in mind that if for some reason your voice recording just isn't working, you use the same browser that you used last time, you're on the same internet connection, but for some reason, I don't know, your mic's not being recognized or something's going wrong, please keep in mind that you can always post a textual response. You are never penalized if you post a textual response, but I'd rather have you do that than email me like at 10 o'clock the next day saying that, for some reason your mic wasn't being recognized and you couldn't post your voice thread. Can I extend that assignment? Well, no, because you got all these other options in which you can post that particular assignment. So if voice isn't working, if video isn't working, try one of these other aspects, and I believe that you'll be more successful and a whole lot less frustrated. Try posting on Saturday night as opposed to Sunday, and I guarantee you'll be a whole lot less frustrated. Okay, so please keep up those upcoming assignments. Last but not least, I posted a link on the bulletin page for an application that allows you to download YouTube videos, and then you'll be able to do some things with those video clips. Please keep in mind that the reason I'm giving you these sort of hints, or these nudges, is to help you move to the forefront of your mind the intellectual AV mix assignment. I don't want you to wait until the last minute, because believe me, you're going to be frustrated and you're going to be emailing me saying you can't do something, or you can't figure out something, or you don't have to, whatever the case might be. If you start early, the frustrations will be far fewer. Okay. Now, please keep in mind there are 3 learning curves. You've got the learning curve for figuring out, if you don't already know, for figuring out how to download videos from YouTube or whatever other video source, and then edit the best out of those videos. You've also got the just a minute group. I'll get you in just a second because you guys are logging in just a little bit late. Okay. I'm going to mute your microphone. All right, let's see. So please keep in mind that not only do you have to learn and understand how to download and edit 2 minutes out of a video clip, but also you have to do the same thing for any audio clips that you decide to use. Remember, you got to use 2 of each. So please keep that in mind. Then you have to figure out a placeholder to put those. Yes, you can use iMovie or Final Cut or Premiere if you want to use a video editor to put everything into. But then you have to remember that you need to still mix in your intellectual commentary somewhere in between, tying all of that together. Okay. You might want to create a website and put all of these bits of media in your website that can be played linearly. Or if you have an iPad, you might want to use the application called TouchCast. Now, remember, all of these technologies have a learning curve associated to them. So if you wait until 2 weeks before before this due date and try to start doing this, you are going to be frustrated beyond all ends if you don't know how to do every one of those steps. And I haven't even talked about the learning curve with regards to the content. So remember, you got to choose a topic related to African American life, literature, or culture to make sure that you can still incorporate, your intellectual commentary that ties these multimedia elements together. So once again, if you're still not sure how to do this, you need to come and see me. You need to get started on this. You can go to the iSpace at the Science and Engineering Library. They can help you record. You can go to the Zone in the regular library and they can help you edit. So please, please don't wait till the last minute to do that. All right, we finally got our group here. Welcome, group. Go ahead and come to the video conference. Move your mouse to the top of the screen and click the microphone icon, and you'll be able to unmute your microphone, and we'll get you set up real quick, okay? Come to the video conference, move your mouse to the top of the screen.
There we go.
There you go. All right, so hello, group. How are you all doing?
Hi, good.
Mr. Dr. Carter.
We're glad you could make it today.
Thank you. Sorry we were late. We were trying to figure everything out.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. So cool. So let's go ahead and get you set up. I assume that you have the PowerPoint presentation that you're going to use on your screen.
Yes.
Is it a PowerPoint or is it a Google Slides?
It's a Google Slides.
Please open that in another window, not another tab, please.
Drag it. Like you drag it off.
Right? I just did that.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Okay.
You good?
Yes.
Okay, come on back to the video conference, please. Move your mouse over to the left-hand side of your screen and a menu bar will pop open. The second button down from the top says Screen Share. When you click that button, a window will open and please click the tab that says Applications and then choose the window with your presentation in it. Oh, and you can close the other window that has the Google Hangout in it because I can hear my voice as a delay. So go ahead and close that other window with that the Notebowl application sent you.
Where did it go?
It's right there.
Oh, so fun.
Okay. Do you need those instructions again on how to share your screen?
I think we're good.
There you go. All right, cool. All right, so now try to click present and see what happens.
Present from the Google Slides.
That's correct. Okay, looks like that's going to load. Great. You can go back up to your first slide. Outstanding. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do a very brief segue from where we were, and then I'll have you all introduce yourselves, and you can go on with your presentation, and you can leave it on the slide right now, so we won't have to worry about sharing it again. But then after you finish your presentation, come back to the video conference and click Stop Sharing. That way, if I have some questions for you, we'll be able to see you as opposed to your slides. Okay.
Okay.
All right, great. So I'll go ahead and segue in, and so just one moment, we'll get started with you all. So as you all know, those of you that are here in the conference, as you all know, we just exited the antebellum and the postbellum period. Remember the antebellum period, that time during slavery, the postbellum period, the time of Reconstruction here in the United States. This was a time when the government was passing a number of laws to sort of help even the playing field of those recently freed slaves to become American citizens, to have voting rights, to to be able to own property, to be able to live where you wanted, to be able to sit in integrated areas, to be able to vote, all these kinds of things, right? And as well as programs to help even the playing field. So the Freedmen's Bureau was set up, and they created schools and banks and hospitals, all these things that were not a part of the African lifestyle prior to 1865. But then after the war finished, of course, these programs were put into place. This was the first form of public assistance that we know of. And so we also know that as a result of that, there were many Americans that basically said, well, why do our tax dollars have to go to support them? Some of the same craziness that we have going on today with regards to the very negative things that people say about those who are on public assistance. So when we think about these issues that we're going through today, once again, these are not new issues. They are ones that have been at in the African American psyche since the freeing of the slaves. Okay. And so here is where we just see them repeated and see them evolved in 2018. And those are the connections that I'm hoping you'll make. So as we get into this Reconstruction period, we learned about those laws that were passed. We learned about what happened in 1875 when the Northern troops left the South. We also learned of the ascendancy of Booker T. Washington, that sort of recognized spokesperson for African Americans. We know that he had an economic mindset that was very conservative. That notion of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, regardless of what's blocking your way. As long as you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you're going to be just fine, and you can accomplish anything. And by doing so, he set an agenda that basically continued to propel him to the forefront of the minds of many white Americans. Because one of the things that he said, of course, is he advocated segregation. When he said in that very famous Atlanta Compromise speech, we can live like the five fingers on a hand, surviving separately, working independently, but working together for the common good, or something like that. And this notion of segregation helped set U.S. policy from then 1898 all the way up into the mid 1950s. So you in all the videos that you all have seen about the run up to the civil rights movement, that was nothing compared to how segregated our United States had been prior to that. Okay, so we've now moved into the early part of the 20th century. We've read W.E.B. Du Bois in his landmark work, The Souls of Black Folk. And I strongly suggested that you download it. And whenever you get a chance, read through some of that, because the nuggets of gold that you'll find in that will really help you understand people of African descent very differently. And we know that many of you are going to be working with people of all ethnicities when you graduate from college. Why not know about their histories so you can better understand who it is that you're working with, or who it is that you're working for, or who it is that's working for you, depending on where you are in whatever corporation, company, graduate school, or whatever you happen to go into. It only makes sense, right, for your own survival. So when you think about what the things that Du Bois said, and of course the life that he led, He led a life of resistance to the tyrannies that he saw still going on in American society. He was the beginnings of the Black Lives Matter movement, if you want to look at it that way, with regards to making sure that people understood that everyone should be created equal. Everyone should be given an equal opportunity to achieve and not trapped into a particular type of a field or career, like Booker T. Washington was advocating with regards to, suggesting that African Americans, gravitate towards the trades and industry and agriculture and forget about higher education. Okay. When we think about James Weldon Johnson, we have yet another advocate who, early on, really, gravitated towards Booker T. Washington, but then later on saw things a little bit differently. And so here is where we begin to our segue into not only James Weldon Johnson, but also his life and career, as well as the next literary period that we're going to be entering. So with that being said, Garrett and group, please introduce yourselves and carry on with your presentation.
Great. So thank you. We did James Weldon Johnson, and
I'm Brett.
I'm Ellie.
And I'm Garrett. All right, so James Weldon Johnson's early life. He was born in Jacksonville in the summer of 1870 to 1871. To a Virginian father and a Bohemian mother. His father was free, he was not a slave, and his parents raised him without a sense of limitations amongst a society that was mainly focused on segregating African Americans. His mother had always encouraged him to study English literature and the European musical tradition. He later attended Atlanta University with hopes to receive an education that could be used to further the interests of African Americans.
And then his career and successes. After he graduated from Atlanta University, he worked as a principal in a grammar school in Jacksonville. And while he was doing that, he founded the Daily American newspaper. In 1897, he became the first African American to pass the bar exam in Florida. In 1900, him and his brother wrote the famous song, "Lift Every Voice and Sing." This song was an immediate hit and is now the official anthem of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. In 1901, he moved to New York to work with his brother, who was a composer. After being successful as a songwriter on Broadway, in 1906, President Theodore Roosevelt appointed him to diplomatic positions in Venezuela and Nicaragua. While he was employed by the Diplomatic Corps, he had poems published in the Century magazine and the Independent. In 1912, he published his novel, The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man, anonymously. The novel was a short story about a musician who rejects his Black roots for a life of materialism in a white world. The book discusses the issue of racial identity in the 20th century, which was a common theme for writers during the Harlem Renaissance. In 1920, his persuasion and hope for the future helped him become the national organizer for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. He edited the Book of American Negro Poetry published by Harcourt Brace in 1922, which was a major contribution to the history of African American literature. His book of poetry, God's Trombones, was influenced by his impressions of the rural South, which were drawn from a trip he took in Georgia while just a freshman in college. It was that trip that sparked his interest in African American folk tradition, leading him to a successful career.
For his late life and death, after retiring from the NAACP in 1930, Johnson devoted the rest of his life to his writings. In 1934, he became the first African American professor at New York University, and at the age of 67, he died in a car accident in Maine on June 26, 1938. And more than 2,000 people attended his funeral in Harlem to respect and honor his legacy.
And those are sites.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Okay. Well, come on back to your video. I have some questions for you. I thought you were going to talk a little bit more about the novel and the reading. So, for those of you here in the live session, please feel free to ask any questions of this group. But if you can come back to the video conference and click stop the screen share, then that way we'll be able to see you. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So, what do you all think about the novel so far?
Gmer, come back. One second.
Oh, sorry. 1 second. I want everyone in it. We like it so far.
Why?
Oh.
Why?
Well, I like it because I feel like it discusses things that we all kind of don't think about when thinking about like Black history. Yeah. I don't know. I enjoy reading just about the challenges and like that he has to go through as a child. Anyone jump in? I'm not the only one supposed to talk.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess one thing I can talk about that I liked was reading about the X-colored man, which is just a guy who believed in, I don't know, like he didn't believe in, it was a guy who just hated all whites, I'm pretty sure.
He just wanted to change the social norms of African Americans in that time period.
Yeah.
He just wanted to expand on how well they can.
Sorry, I can't talk right
read,
now.
write, music, compose, act, everything he did in his career, civil rights activism.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, let's delve into this novel a little bit. You can go ahead and mute your microphone if you like, but let's delve into this a little bit because some of the issues that are brought out in this novel are really important with regards to understanding not only the evolution of his thinking as he goes through life. You know, this is sort of a coming of age story in many respects, but it also has some other issues related to it that deal with racial identity. Interestingly enough, you guys mentioned that early on, and this novel is about racial identity. When someone is brought up in a particular environment, how his or her ideas are shaped as a result of that environment. And we see that the ex-colored man's ideas are reshaped with every time he moves to a different place, or every time he flees a particular situation because he's uncomfortable and he goes to another location, his ideas are reshaped with regards to his racial identity. You see, it's quite interesting. These are issues that oftentimes those who are not of color don't necessarily think about. What do you mean racial identity? Because when you're not of color, you don't have to worry about necessarily, fitting into an environment that doesn't look like you and behaving a certain way so that this environment accepts you in a way that is acceptable, so to speak. So when you think about how this ex-colored man, this young child's ideologies are shaped because he didn't necessarily know his father, but then he was introduced to him or told that this man was his father, but he really doesn't have that much of a relationship with him. He is able to pass, which is the most important aspect of this novel. He looks, for all intents and purposes, like he's white. He doesn't hate whites, and that never comes out in the novel that he hates all whites. But what he does is he's trying to figure out his role because of the way he looks versus the way that he is identified by society. Remember, there's this rule in society that basically says if you got one drop of black blood, you're black, and that was the de facto sort of identification of African Americans ever since the international slave trade was abolished, and white masters took to breeding their own stock. And when that happened, as we mentioned before, because of miscegenation, some of those children came out looking very white, but they were still considered black, and some came out looking very dark skinned, and every shade in between. So as a result of that, he comes out looking very white. And so because he is not considered such by his peers, by his teachers, and by the rest of society that knows him, he then moves to a different location where he is not known. And that idea of passing takes on not only an ideological or a psychological being within him. He passes in his mind from being black to being something other. But he also has to pass physically to a different location where he's not known. And because people don't know him, they see his exterior appearance. He's considered white because of the way he looks. So interestingly enough, this novel, because it was published anonymously, so many people, and I was surprised you all didn't bring this out in your presentation, so many people thought it was a real autobiography because there were a lot of African Americans who could pass. And so this idea of not knowing if this person sitting next to you who looks white is actually black or white or what, came into question. And that's when, a lot of people started, sort of doing background checks and asking, who are your people? Where are you from? And becoming very suspicious of anyone who's new that's in the neighborhood. So when we look at the evolution of his thinking, it's because of various bits of trauma that he observes happening to African Americans that he then makes the final decision to pass and remain in the white world, so to speak. So when you think about how someone comes to that decision, it's not necessarily that they hate blacks or that they love whites. It's because of the ways that individuals are treated because of the way they look. I mean, if you think about this sort of larger question, if you're white, would you trade places with someone who's black? And a lot of whites would say probably not. And if you were black, would you trade places with someone who's white? Maybe back 50, 100 years ago, that answer might have been a little bit different. Today, it's probably not necessarily as positive. So when you think about these aspects of what goes on inside someone's mind, it's not only how someone was brought up, but also the ways that racial pride are taught within a particular community. So in James Weldon Johnson's community, when he was really growing up, I mean the real James Weldon Johnson, not the ex-colored man, we see that he grows up in a predominantly black society. So now imagine being a black child. You're surrounded by people who look like you in positions of power, and basically you are affirmed with regards to your racial identity. You're not told either overtly or covertly that you're ugly, that you're worthless, that you mean nothing, that you're less intelligent, that you're basically less than, that everything about you, your education, everything about you affirms your racial identity. Well, that's the same thing that happens to young white children on a daily basis. And so then when black children are placed in a white society, oftentimes their identity is not affirmed. Okay. Everything they see in advertisements, everything that they don't see around them in positions of power basically says that they can't do that, or they can't be that, or because they are not like the majority, that they are then set aside or less than. That wreaks havoc on the psyche. And unfortunately, a lot of whites don't understand that whole psychological aspect that goes on when a child is growing up. And that's what James Weldon Johnson sought to demonstrate with regards to the decisions that the ex-colored man makes in this particular novel. So once again, these are not the issues that we're going through today are not new issues. The topic that James Weldon Johnson brings up up in this novel is something that we're going to see again at the very end of the semester. So suggesting that, well, dang, if James Weldon Johnson said this in 1912 and we're hearing the same thing in 1917, or in 2017, somebody's got to be telling the truth. Okay, everybody in between there can't be lying. Okay, so here's where when you think about these issues that James Weldon Johnson was bringing up, racial identity, racial pride, but also issues related to passing and the responsibility or irresponsibility of those who have had advantages in their lives, who are African American. Remember, Charles Chestnut talked about that in The Wife of His Youth. Those who have had advantages should reach back and assist those who have been less advantaged in American society. And James Weldon Johnson showing that his ex-colored man chooses a different path and what befalls him. So one of the fears that those who can pass are always, sort of inundated by are the fear of being found out. What if somebody finds out that you're Black? Well, the repercussions at that time were extremely severe. Okay, we're talking about a lynching. We're talking about all kinds of craziness that goes on within a lynching sort of celebration, kind of, so to speak. We also find that this to be exemplified in many cinematographic examples. So when you think about the movie Imitation of Life, look it up on the internet. It's amazing. It's a black and white movie, but it basically deals with this notion of passing. When you think about the movie Pinky, it deals with this notion of passing. When you think about The Human Stain, with Anthony Hopkins in it, it deals once again with this notion of passing. So this is not a phenomena that is, something odd or anything like that. In fact, we're dealing with it in many respects with the royal family and the youngest son that's about to marry a half Black, bride. And when you think about the uproar that's happening within just the royal family, she looks pretty much white or not Black, but she's Black because she's got a half white, or basically a Black father. So when you think about this racial mixing, regardless of how she looks, she's still considered Black. Okay. And so these issues within Black culture are things that are being spoken about that hopefully those of you who are not of color will begin to kind of understand some of the issues that we're reading about now and that we're going to read about even more as we get through the Harlem Renaissance, the Depression era, the post-Depression era, the pre-civil rights era, the civil rights era, and on into the contemporary period. So here we are. James Weldon Johnson, he takes over he's part of the, this sort of economic thing. And eventually he joins the NAACP. He takes over as the general secretary. In other words, he heads up the NAACP. He's a poet by trade. He critiques poetry. He encourages many of the younger writers of the Harlem Renaissance to publish. And he helps, the NAACP become not only a national civil rights organization, but one of the largest ones in the world with regards to fighting for civil rights and using the justice system in order to fight for those civil rights. And the NAACP won some amazing court cases back in the 1920s at their highest, at some of their highest points. Okay, so this era that we're about to enter is leading us up into World War I. This is in 1917 that war kicks off, and America was a reluctant participant in that war. You all have learned about world affairs during this period. You probably studied World War I. You might even know what started World War I, right? You may even know what drew us into World War I. thing. And so on Thursday, we're going to get into not only what some of those effects on Black Americans were during that war, but also what came out of that war that perhaps you did not learn. So, keep in mind that part of what this class, I hope, is introducing you to are all the things that were sort of marginalized or eliminated from your previous educational experiences. And what I'm hoping you'll say to yourselves is, dang, why is it that I only learned about, a certain aspect of American culture, and all this other stuff out here was basically marginalized? How is that a fair education? How is that something that's going to prepare me for working in a diverse environment when I graduate? In some cases, it's handicapping you because you don't know how to deal with people who are different than yourselves. And so I'm so happy that all of you took this class, because hopefully at least you'll have some glimmer of how to deal with African Americans, because you know a little bit about the history through the literature. And knowing about that history will help you empathize, perhaps, or help you at least understand some of that which a fellow employee may be going through, or some of that which your boss may be going through, or some of that which someone who's working for you may be dealing with as you graduate from this university, which is not necessarily as diverse as we would like for it to be, but one that I hope is maybe in some way preparing you for a world outside of this university. And that's what really is most important. Okay. All right. So folks, thank you so much. Group, thank you so much for your brief overview of the life of James Weldon Johnson. For those of you who are finishing up the novel, please go ahead and finish that up. We didn't give any severe spoilers. We might have given a few, but I think you'll still enjoy the ending of that novel. Please make sure that you read the introduction to the Harlem Renaissance. Make sure that you read that information about Langston Hughes, one of the premier poets of that period, the premier writers, the premier essayists, you can put all these things in front of Langston Hughes's name. He was just everything, right? And please make sure that you not forget the voice thread that is coming up due on February 16th. Move the intellectual AV mix to the forefront of your minds, please. Make sure that you choose a topic. Make sure that you're able to intellectually discuss that topic, and then support your ideas with the multimedia requirements that are a part of this particular assignment. Okay. All right, folks, take it easy. Have a wonderful day. Keep up with your assignments, and thanks for being here. Take care, everybody.